Hey, what's going on? What's up? Want to welcome you in today to the Not Safe for Sunday podcast. I'm joined today by Daniel. Daniel, what's going on, my man?
How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful day.
Beautiful day, beautiful day. I'm also joined by Ken.
What's going on?
Ken, what's up, dude?
Hey, just wishing you a happy birthday. That's what's
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
right there. I know we're not supposed
you.
to mention
I
dates.
know, I
in
was
this, but,
avoiding it.
Yeah.
but hey, you know what? Come on.
How could you?
Happy birthday,
How
bro.
could you? Thank you so
Honor
much.
where honor's due, you know?
That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. 34 years old today, and I'm feeling 54, so probably not
Two kids
good.
will do that to you.
Yeah, 2 kids will do that. It's probably not good.
We'll talk about that on the next podcast.
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll save that for down the road. But no, so today we wanted to talk about something, and Daniel, it's something that you spoke about a few weeks ago when you shared a word on a Sunday, and Ken, you actually brought this up yesterday, and I had to go talk to you about it afterwards, and I was pumped with the energy that you came with. Like, it really was like, ooh, gave me some shivers in the back row.
For sure.
And that's what's up with the men. What is up with the men?
Well, the energy, you know, I'm not really known for that high energy. First of all, you know, usually I got to like check my pulse to make sure I'm still alive and stuff like that. But
Okay.
But some topics just bring out, and actually, as we think about it now, to be honest, this could have been the actual full inspiration to even do a podcast, Daniel. If I go back in the memory banks a little bit, because it was like Daniel was just coming on staff. I don't know what came first, right? The chicken or the egg, but like I know we were going through a time where it just seemed like, you know, in our position, you know, being full time at church, and we just get to talk to so many people, and unfortunately, we just get to hear a lot of difficult things that people are going through, and it just seemed like a string of like wives like kind of just crying out, and just kind of things we were catching wind of men that were just not stepping up and not
Sure.
doing what they were supposed to do.
Sure.
And so again, whatever came first, I don't know, but it was around the same time we're talking about wanting to do a podcast, and we always kind of knew, all right, this would be the first topic.
Okay. So this was already in the works.
This has been brewing for a little
This has
while.
been
Oh, okay.
ruined big
I just
time.
walked into the middle of the eye of the hurricane, I
Yeah.
guess. Oh man. So I'm sorry for those that are listening. I might be touched a little bit today too. I might be a little bit scarred after I leave this room. But I guess we'll see. So this must have been at least a year's worth of sitting and thinking about this, stewing over it.
Probably that late August, September-ish,
Yeah.
right? Something like that. Daniel, if you remember.
Honestly, I think even the podcast idea might even been before coming on staff. We've been talking about it
Probably.
for a while.
Yeah.
And we just always said, like, we really felt the first and major topic we needed to do was address the men.
Well, here we are.
Here we are.
We got to address them. So, Daniel, well, Ken, you shared most recently, and one of the things, and I'm never gonna do it as good a justice as you do it, but the thing I took away that I went and came to with yesterday was you kind of said something along the lines of, I don't want the excuse of I didn't have the role model, or it was something along those lines, and I'm like, ooh, because that's what I've heard from so many different men in and outside of the church that, well, I'm failing in this manner because I've never had that male role model in my life to show me X, Y, or Z. And when you said that yesterday, I had to sit back in my chair. I'm like, wow. Yeah, he's coming at some people right now.
Yeah. That just comes from the heart, really, because, you know, I grew up without a dad. You know, my father passed before I was 5, and I've just always had to just kind of do stuff. You know what I mean? It's and when you're young, it's like, okay, like every other kid in the hockey locker room, you know, when they were younger, had their dad with them, helping them lace up their skates. Guess what? I was doing it on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Teaching them how to tape their stick, doing it on my own.
Yeah.
So for my whole life, it's just been like kind of like just doing it because there's no other choice, because you don't. So then you get into like young adulthood, and now the stakes are way higher, because now you're talking about relationships, wives, children.
Of course.
And if you're not willing to like do well and like do your best and just figure it out or get help, or you know, there's generations at stake. This is not just like, oh, I had a bad day, or, you know,
right.
like, you know, menial stuff is affected. This is like life, and this is generational. So if you're not willing to, you know, step up, work hard, get help, surround yourself with people who do, you know more, have more experience, have better role models than you, then yeah, you'd be using excuses all day long.
Right. Because what you're talking about is accepting that leadership role and everything that comes along with it. That's the way I see it, is you have this leadership role and you need to accept it and the challenges that come with it. When I got home and I'm thinking about you saying that, and what came to my mind is me not having a positive male role model in my life, or somebody to show me how to do things this way. That can either be an obstacle that you can get over, or that's something that you're tethered to forever. So you can always run back to it and say, oh, this is my excuse for my failures, is this aspect of my life is the thing I'm tethering to, and saying, I can't get past this because you never got over that obstacle. You've continued to use that as your scapegoat for why you're not taking on that responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And we're not talking about just any Joe out on the street. We're talking about, you know, these are messages that are at church.
Right.
Now, church, here we have the family of God, which is the family of all families, and you have the Bible. And so, you know, between those couple things, you know, we're not talking about it's an uphill battle. There's no doubt about it. It's a fight. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. It's a struggle. It's clawing. There's no doubt about it. But you have here the family of families. So you have other men of God, you know, and that's why the church is so important and incredible, because in all that I may have missed out on, you know, living in a broken world and growing up in a broken family, now I'm in the family of families, which is not perfect, but it has a standard, a godly standard, and godly principles, and, you know, a guideline for how I can live my life as a real man, as a leader, and all these things. So it's not like I'm just out, you know, totally by myself on the street with no resource.
Right.
I'm in the best place possible.
Right.
So this is the place that excuses don't hold water. They don't stick to the wall around here.
That's
I'm sorry.
true.
Because
true.
you have so much around you. There's men's groups. There's resources everywhere.
Right.
And so, speaking from experiences, that's what I had to do. Like, I had to get around men that knew what they were doing, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Of course.
You know, I had to get around men that you know had stronger stability systems growing up, and just had better role models, and I had to get around them and learn and glean, just so that I could catch up.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Something Pastor Gabe has always said here growing up, I just remember hearing it, is strong families, strong churches.
Yeah.
And I think the tie back to that too is strong men, strong families. And it doesn't mean physical strength or mental strength. It means really being spiritually strong. Spiritually strong, spiritually mature, spiritually healthy men make spiritually strong, spiritually healthy, spiritually strong. I think I said that already. Families. And that really leads to healthy churches. And so in the same framework, it's like healthy churches. The more that there are healthy families in a healthy church, in a world that's so broken and so lost, when they enter into that environment, they have all the support that they need to really grow and develop from these areas and from these difficulties they've had growing up without fatherlessness being rampant in today's society. And then even the present fathers that are there are not strong.
Right.
They're weak,
right.
And they're not stepping up to where they're supposed to be and actually leading in a home and leading their children well. And so church really should be the model for this. And when you look around and you see a lot of fragility in men, even in churches, it can be, man, a point of like a righteous anger, you
Absolutely.
know, it can really get you going a little bit. And I think that's some of the conversations Ken and I have had over the last like year or so. It really gets your blood going in a healthy, righteous way, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the things that you kind of read in between the lines, what you touched on, is kind of you recognizing that, all right, I don't have a father. I need to find good men that I can model my behavior after.
Yeah.
that's you admitting that there's something missing, that's you admitting that you're not maybe good at X, Y, or Z. And let me tell you, the pride thing with men, when it comes to admitting that, oh, I'm not good at this or I need help with this, that is such a wall that we have put up that, oh, yeah, no, I don't want anybody else to know that I can't do this or am not good at this. And I'm too proud to go ask somebody else for help.
Yeah, no, that's a big part. And just, kind of going on what Daniel and I have been talking about in the past, it's like you have situations that come up and it's like, okay, you got wife is crying out, just crying out, not necessarily to us, but we catch wind, you know what I mean? Being in a church and having a family that cares so much about each other and has such a strong model for discipleship and surrounding one another. And so you have a wife that would just cry out because she works full time. She's got kids, she's got a house to try to keep in order. She's got meals to cook. And where the husband should be leading the way, direction and protection, and trying to lighten her load, he's off doing 10,000 different hobbies, right, barely bringing in a paycheck and all these things, but yet still demanding food on the table and that the house be clean and the kids be wiped and diapered and bathed. And it's like, so that's the kind of stuff that like that goes up me sideways, and I want to grab guys by the neck when and unfortunately it's tough because a lot of times that story will come with, but don't tell my husband, because then it's going to rock the boat even more and it's going to make a bad dynamic even worse. Right. And so it's like I can't grab dudes by the neck because I'll make something worse than it already is. But I want to because it's like, again, like there's not a lot of excuses, here for stepping up as a man. Right. And me having like, I had a single mom who like did the work of both and did a really good job with it. You know what I mean? And worked and made sure I got to sports and made sure food was on the table and cleaned the, so for somebody to like, to give up their responsibility and their first responsibility, right? That's just, there's no excuse for that.
And that'll go into the message that you shared, and it's a great question. Why are men not the leaders in their household? Why are they not spiritual leaders? Why is this the culture that's been built that, like you said, cook, clean, bring me my house shoes when I get home, dinner better be on the table, but I'm just going to do my thing and I'm not going to lead these people anywhere. And Daniel, that, like I said, that was the message that you shared is why aren't men the leaders in their household, the spiritual leaders in their household?
I think it goes back to even Ken's message yesterday about working hard. Like you stop working hard, you start getting complacent. Complacency leads to what?
Complacency leads to comfort. Desire for comfort.
Comfort leads to sensual pleasure. And so we get caught up in all of this. And as men, especially in today's society, there is a direct attack against men, believe it or not. It can be very subvert or it can be very overt where it's like in our faces. But there's an attack against man and against men and against manhood for men to step up, really. And I think men have grown complacent, they've grown distracted, and they've grown happy with toys and pleasures and all these different things. And so they're not stepping up in their role as men because they're distracted. And quite frankly, they don't want to. You're not going to do anything you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like the number one thing is you need to be convinced. You need to have conviction. You need to have the conviction that I need to step up. And unfortunately, we can't play the job of the Holy Spirit in that realm.
Right.
That's right.
We need to pray for these men, and we need to lead by example. And I also think accountability is huge in that realm as well.
Can grab them by the neck sometimes.
Sometimes, absolutely.
Don't be afraid to grab them by the neck, I guess. Just do it outside of here.
That's going to be the title of the podcast, Grab them by the neck.
Grab them by the neck. Yeah. Grab them by the neck.
We do a lot of emotionally healthy, as you guys know, as part of our discipleship. And a great point is made in that book when it's, I think it's the third chapter, going back in order to go forward. You start examining like where your family came from. And there's a lot of dynamics that are built up that are cultural or even just like to the period of your ancestors. And so you think about like there was a time, when wives didn't work and they stayed home and they took care of the kids. And so that dynamic worked. But now 90-something% of the time or more, whatever, both parents work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that cultural or that time period dynamic, it doesn't work anymore because now you have both people out of the house, both people putting in their 40 hours or whatever, both, so to then put all the rest of the duty on one person is just it's not realistic.
It's not feasible.
Something's going to break.
Yeah.
No, you make a great point, and it is like being a leader is understanding that you're taking on that responsibility and the willingness to do so. And we've talked about this a few times outside of the podcast. And what does it even mean to be a leader? What are good qualities that leaders have? And the thing that keeps coming up is the buck has to stop with you. You have to make that commitment to your family. You have to make that commitment to God. It is your God-given commitment to your family is to be the leader of that household. So to just pass that along and just act like it's not a big deal, like you're getting it. You've been given this. You can't give that responsibility away. It is yours, whether you choose to take it or not. But you can see the difference in the people that choose not to take it and how spiritually healthy their families are. So,
yeah, I mean, I think everything goes back to Genesis. It really does. And like, I can't even answer your question as why.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
But I can see how. And for some reason, you go back to Genesis, go back to the beginning, and there's a default somehow, like in man, that will default to complacency and abdicating responsibility. And you see it right in Genesis 3. You see it right in the fall, Like, here's Eve, and she's just doing her thing, and the serpent comes to deceive her. Did God really say? And she knows the command because she recites it back to Satan, right? So whether or not it came from God, I kind of think it came from Adam, because we know scripturally that God did tell Adam, you may eat of the fruit of any tree of the garden except that one. So she recites that same thing back to the serpent. So she knows it, probably through Adam, maybe from God directly. But the point is that this deception's happening, and Adam is totally silent. And we know he's there because it says that the woman ate the fruit and then gave some to her husband who was with her.
Yep.
So he's there, but what's he doing? He's just chilling, and we can kind of infer that he's emotionally detached from this situation.
Yeah.
Because here his wife is getting just deceived massively, and I don't know what he's doing.
So this is from the beginning. This is a from the beginning.
This is a from the beginning problem.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
From the beginning, we abdicated that responsibility and said, I know I'm supposed to be the leader here, but if she wants to eat that, that's okay. That's okay with me, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just like, and you see it play out time and time and time and time again, where it's like a lot of times, the deception does come to the woman first, and, we deal with situations around here all the time where, things are just humming along, right? Family, marriage, kids, everything's just humming along. And then one day, and it's weird because this dynamic has shifted a lot over the years.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many years, but for a while now, it's been where the guys are coming to me and saying, my wife just woke up one day and says she doesn't love me anymore. And I'm like, okay.
That doesn't just happen.
Right, yeah. And as the story plays out and you see it's always the same MO. It's always that things are just humming along. And, well, what have you been doing? Well, I work 70 hours a week. And then, when I get home, I'm just so tired. And, I just got to put on SportsCenter. I just got to relax. I got to eat. And then, I got some bills and paperwork to do for the business or whatever. And so it's just like after a while of wife being emotionally alone, the deception will come.
Right.
And it comes in many forms, especially with social media. You're not happy. Why aren't you happy? You should seek after your own happiness. You missed out. You didn't have any fun growing up. You got married too young. And all these things come deception. Husband's totally unaware because he's so wrapped up in everything else and so busy abdicating that first responsibility, which is an emotional security for his wife. And so, that's the garden. playing out in modern context over and over and over, and that's what we're dealing with.
It's so true. It's so true, and we've talked about it before too. As part of being a good leader, because you might feel like you're the leader of your household. Actually, Daniel, that's what you shared. That is during your message was, are you the spiritual leader of your family, of your home? And I had to get into my car on the drive home, look at my wife, and say, "Hey, am I the spiritual leader of our home?" and
just want to double check.
Yeah, she looked at me and was like, "Yeah," and I said, "All right, I just want to make sure you knew that." But
I asked too, by the way.
Yeah, good. I'm proud of you.
I asked too.
But we talk about what qualities good leaders have, and one of those qualities is if you're a good leader, you have conversation with those that you're leading, because like you said, those husbands, are they talking to their wives and saying, "Hey, I know I've been working a lot. Is there anything going on? Is there anything I can help you out with? How am I doing? How am I doing as the leader of this household?" How many times do leaders even sit down and have that conversation with the people that they're leading to say, "How am I doing?" Because you might think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, good point.
But until you're getting the feedback from the people that you're leading, you're not going to know if you're really actually performing the duties that the way that you feel like you are. Because we all have this maybe little shine on ourselves, like, I'm doing great, I'm crushing it. And then you sit down and you talk to your significant other, you talk to your kids, and you find out, oh, I'm actually really not doing that good. And then you have to take that and implement it and be better. And that's what good leaders do. They strive to be better. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I think intentionality is huge, right? I mean, I think the minute you stop being intentional, like if you're not making forward progress, it's like you're on a conveyor belt.
Right.
Like even though you're not going, when you stop going forward, you're gonna go backwards. There is no staying put. So you either have to keep working hard and keep being intentional, keep communicating, keep being open, honest, and direct, keep loving, keep serving. You always have to keep doing those things, because the minute you stop, there's an all-out assault against your family, against your marriage, against your children, and against yourself. And so you're either working hard or you're going backwards. There is no, I'm comfortable, I'm staying put, I'm good right here, you know?
But that conveyor belt analogy is exactly it. You feel, because like on a treadmill, you feel like you're moving, but you're not actually getting anywhere. So you're like tricking yourself into believing like, I am moving forward. What do you mean, Daniel? I am moving forward, but without those other strong men that you were talking about before, Ken, without those people to speak truth into those people's lives, to say, well, you feel like you're moving, but you're in the same place you've been for the past however many years. Yeah, you're putting in the effort, but you're not getting anywhere, and you got to reflect on why that is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of men, probably get intimidated with the whole like leader of their home thing, because again, if you didn't have a good example of leadership, right, you ain't going to be a good one,
right?
Yeah, at least in the beginning, right?
Yep.
And so, but I think a lot of it is like, I think men, your God-given call by God, it's like, it wasn't that difficult, it wasn't that complicated in Genesis. God made man, he put him to work, right put him to sleep, gave him a companion, told him, be fruitful, multiply. I mean, life was good.
That's a pretty
Easy
good life
peasy.
right there.
That's a pretty
Just don't eat from that tree. You can have anything else.
Absolutely. Really one real warning
Yeah.
about how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Tons of liberty. All these trees, eat them all.
Yeah.
Just not that one. So I think the hard part, because, leadership just really starts with being accountable to what you've been called to. And if you believe in God, which, I mean, we're talking about, I know it's not safe for Sunday, but we're in a church setting where typically we're talking about things that are talked about at church and things from the Bible. So, the first thing is God called man to work, and then he called him to be a husband. You know what I mean? So when you got your 69 Mustang out in the garage that gets more time than your wife, it's getting more tuning up than the wife, if you know what I mean?
Yes.
And like 17 different friends that you got to go golf with and go drinking with or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I mean, you get what you put in. You know what I mean? You
Right.
get out what you put in. So it's like, this is not that hard. And I think a lot of leadership is just being accountable and being present for what you've been called to.
Right.
Because I can speak honestly for myself. Like I didn't have a whole lot in that department going for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the simple things that you just got to be consistent at and work hard at and just meet the needs that are present, you know, and God does so much more, you know, to help us, you know,
Of
grow
course.
in that area. But if you can't even be present,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. God knows. He knows we suck at it. But he knows we suck at being leaders. We blew it in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
but it's being like Daniel, like you said, it's being intentional, and if you didn't have that positive male role model or whatever, it's being intentional to seek the actual role model and seeking God and the things that you do. But the men that are coming in on a Sunday, are you doing it out of, you feel obligated to do it, like my wife and family is going? Would I rather be out playing 18 holes and doing something else, and I'm just doing it just because this is like what I'm supposed to do? Or are you doing it to have a relationship with God? Are you doing it to learn and grow within your Christianity? Or are you just doing it because my wife dragged me here this Sunday, every Sunday? And I think that's something that men actually have to reflect on and think about. Like, if I'm supposed to be the spiritual leader of my home, am I being intentional in my relationship with God? Because I'm a leader in my career, and even people, CEOs, top people, they have people that they go to get advice, to get leadership qualities that they might not have already. They might not be one of their strong attributes. So just because you're a leader doesn't mean you can't outsource for information on how to be better at what you do. We should always be striving to be better.
From like 04 to like, I don't even know when, but probably 10 years straight, I went to a men's conference that was in different parts of the country every single year, but I went every year.
Yeah.
Because I needed PD. I needed professional development. I needed work.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I mean, it was like, I don't care where it was.
Right.
My dime. I don't care. I'm going. I'm
Yeah.
definitely going. And so why? Because I know I'm weak in a lot of areas.
Right.
And I know here I'm going to get built up and I'm going to learn stuff and I'm going to feel probably terrible about myself too, but that's part of it. You know,
Yeah.
that's the whole repentance part,
Right.
is turning from what I was doing, turning towards something better and learning a lot and just being around guys that, you know, can rub off on me. And so, yeah, that's huge. There's so many resources. And that's why the excuse game just does not work.
Yeah, I'm a big
it doesn't work.
anti-excuser. Big
Yeah.
anti-excuser. But I think we treat a lot of the times, like, men treat going to church like their wives dragging them to Target.
Right.
You know what I mean? They come with the same excitement as sitting in the Target parking
Right.
lot for their wife who's inside taking her time. It's like they're here, but they're not. You know, mentally they're just checked out. They really, it starts with there's no conviction within them to want to walk this thing out. And so when there's no conviction within themselves to walk it out, there's really going to be no follow through in action. You know, every action starts with that conviction, starts with that belief. And so men need to become convinced themselves. And I think men see it most when they see other men doing it. I think that's where the inspiration comes. When you see a man who's really leading their home, whose family is in order, who is operating healthy, who is operating it from a strong place, that's inspirational. That makes you want to step up as a man and say, man, I want to be like that. You know, I want to be like that. Because really, who looks like at somebody who's a low-life husband and a no good for nothing, who's lazy, whose family's in shambles? Who looks at that and says, oh, that's somebody who inspires me?
Yeah. It's the opposite. It's
I mean,
like,
really.
Oh, yeah.
that guy's a bum.
Absolutely. And so I think men see it most in other men. Honestly, they don't see it in their wife telling them to step up. If
Right.
anything, that they feel more deflated. They feel their pride's hurt. Now they're feeling more emotionally like on guard because they're feeling like they're being poked at. You know, but they're going to see it on the display in the lives of other men. And how many men really have healthy men as examples in their lives? I mean, I'll tell you what, if I look outside of my relationships within the church, there are very, very few men I can look at in my life outside of the church environment that I'm like, that's a strong man leading their family and leading their home in a healthy, emotionally available, like being a present father. There are very few that I can say.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're right. You are right. And let me tell you something. If my wife ever looked at me and just said, you know what, you're just not doing good enough,
Oof.
that would,
But that hasn't happened to you yet?
No, because if it did, I think I would drop dead right there, because that would cut me.
Ken's still kicking.
Been resurrected like 3 times.
That would cut me right to my core. If the person that I feel like I care about the most in this world, my wife and my family, looked me in the eye and said, "You're not doing good enough," ooh, that would hurt so bad. I don't think there's any worse thing that I could hear.
Oh yeah, no, that's the knife that cuts. That's the double-edged sword that cuts on the way in and the way out.
Well, and how many times has that been the crisis call we've gotten from men?
Oh, absolutely.
You were just saying it. It's like they wake up one day and their wife tells them that they haven't been doing good enough so long that they're out or they're done. They need to get out of here. And it's like, then all of a sudden it's like the veil was torn from these men's eyes and they're like, I don't understand. I feel like I've been doing pretty good.
And it speaks to an earlier point you made, is like, you're the treadmill, you're just humming along.
Yeah.
And you think you're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. And it's crisis that snaps you to,
Right.
snaps you awake. What?
Yeah.
And it's like this, again, it's hard application, but it's not hard to understand, like the Bible is all about relationships, healthy relationships, And it's like, you just go to Ephesians 5. And when Paul says, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church and gave himself for her.
Yep.
I mean, Christ right now is at the right hand of the Father praying for the church,
Interceding.
literally laid down his life for this thing that would be the church, calls the church his beloved, his bride. There's just this care, that needs are met and that protection is there. And like, so if you're married and your wife is like 7th on the priority list,
right,
behind work, leisure, hobbies, guys, whatever your list is, what else can you say? I've failed at what I'm called to do. Again, if you're not a believer or so-called or a churchgoer, then I can't help you. But if you're in the church and you subscribe to the beliefs, of Christ and of the Bible, then you got some problems, man, and you got some stuff to work on.
Right.
And so the preceding verse though is, wives, submit to your husbands, and so guys will always be like, well, the wife is supposed to submit to the husband, but that submission is in response to the love that the husband gives her, as our submission to Christ's love is a response to the initiation that he gave. And so trust me, when you love your wife the way that Christ loved the church, your wife will put a bow on those golf clubs and send you out the door for 18 twice on the weekend, when you're loving your wife the right way, meeting the emotional needs, meeting the security needs, meeting the financial needs. I'm not talking about being a sugar daddy. I'm just doing your part. Security being the number one need of a woman, both emotionally, and financially and physically. If you're doing that, the wife is submitted to that love, and she's kissing you out the door on the way to go play 18. And
I had to just double check, because I don't have the mind to remember Bible verses the way that you guys do. Like, I don't know why I can remember all the 150 original Pokemon, but I have such a hard time.
We're not going down that trail.
Yeah, we won't go down that trail. But what verse it was, it says, love your wife, men, love your wife as you love yourself. So if you love yourself enough to take care of yourself, go get your hair cut every week, go pursue the things that bring you joy and happiness, where is the reciprocation to your wife? If that's you've held yourself in this high esteem that I deserve all these good things, and you're supposed to love your wife the same amount, well, what are you giving back to give to your wife that same amount of love that you show yourself, to fill your days with all the things that you enjoy? Well, where is the reciprocation for that to your wife? And I think that part is missing. It's a very selfish.
Yeah.
It's a very selfish love to just say, I'm gonna do all these different things, and then listen. And I've done it sometimes too. I'll go out and play 18 holes of golf. I know my wife's been home with the kid all day, and then come home and be like, I think I need a nap.
That was a rough day's of work.
Yeah, rough day at work, and that's selfish of me. But that's a conversation that my wife and I would have to have. And okay, now I can recognize that, but it's a very selfish thing to only gratify your wants and needs, and to not think about your significant other that you chose to marry. You chose to be wed to this other person, and now is the time that you're saying, no, you're not worthy of that part of my love. It's crazy.
And just think about how everything compiles on, because if you go like something like that example, where you're just out playing 18, then it's Sunday, it's time for church. And so now add to that the stress for the wife, the mom, to get everybody ready. And then you're just one of the kids, you're not getting out of bed either. And, you should be the one up first and getting everybody out of bed and say, let's go. Sundays we go to church, but you're just one of the kids. And then you get back to Monday, and here Monday, now it's meals for the week and her own 40-hour job. And so it just, again, there's only so much that one, and I don't even mean that it's 50-50, because life is not 50-50.
Right.
It just can't be. It changes, the dynamics change a lot. But man, if you're not stepping up and taking the lead and making sure things are right and tight, you're failing. You're going to reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And that wake up call, 20 years down the line where I don't love you anymore, that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rounds of golf that led up to
that.
That
was a lot of golf. Yeah, I hope your golf score's good.
I'm sure.
You probably still stink at golf. It wasn't even worth it.
Yeah, it's not even good. It's definitely not good. My golf score is definitely not good. So, yeah, it's definitely not worth it. And it's for your children too. Your children need a strong, especially you have little boys, like they need a strong male role model that we just talked about. Like if that's what you're supposed to be, and you come to church and you're a Christian man and supposed to be a strong spiritual leader of your household, well, those kids are looking up to you. Your son is looking up to you and saying, that's what I want. I'm going to model myself after. And if it's a lot of hypocrisy, well, they're going to recognize that eventually. And they're going to say 20 years down the line, well, I didn't really have a good positive male role model in my life. And they can either use that as like I said before, that can be the tether that they always are stuck to, or that's the hurdle, the what's the word I'm looking for? That's the obstacle that they finally got over at some point in their life. So, no, you're 100% right.
Well, we should look at raising our kids, especially like we should never want them to have to say like they have any struggles because their father.
Right.
I mean, what kind of testimony is that to how you raised your children, and how you led your wife, and your children should really be able to look at you. If you're providing a safety for your wife, if you're covering your wife with prayer and with care and with love, and you're going to her and you're speaking with her and you're communicating with her and you're presenting yourself to her in a way just as Christ presented himself to the church. And in Matthew 20:28, he didn't come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for others and for many. And so if we're not giving our lives as a ransom for our wives, our children are going to see that.
Right.
The same way that they're going to see us serving her and loving her and caring for her. And so they're going to go to her and they're going to come to us and they're going to know that's operating in a healthy way.
Right.
And it's going to eliminate so many boundaries, even mentally, that they're going to have to challenge through as they get older, because they're seeing this done in a healthy operating way, that then they're going to know what to want from a man. Like daughters are going to know what to go after in a man by what they see in their father.
Amen.
Yeah.
And so if they're not seeing a man who's covering their wife. I mean, look at your daughter. If you have a daughter, look at your daughter. Do you want her to go after a man like you? You know, and the way that you treat your wife, you know, think about that. And so that's how we should be raising our daughters. And young men are going to know how to treat their wives by the way we treat our wives.
That's right.
And so are we going to want our young boys, our young men, are we going to want them treating their wives the way that we treat ours? And so you almost have to remove yourself from the frame of reference of your mind, looking at how you treat your wife and say, like, is this how I want my son to treat his wife? Is this how I want my daughter to be treated by her husband? And really, it helps to remove you from the situation, because we can be selfish, we can be emotional, we can be, you know, just tired and complacent and lazy. And then, of course, and there's always going to be a million and one excuses. And so we can look at that and say, you know what? I have a right to be like this. You know, and we're always looking for justification for how we're acting. We're always looking for an excuse on why we're right to be acting the way we are. But you need to take a step back, really, and reflect and analyze and say, am I doing right? Am I leading right? Am I leading the same way that Jesus leads his church and loved his church? And that's what we're called to do. There's no excuse.
I think, just real quick, it goes back to what you said. Men get lazy and get complacent. They don't want to put in the work. And so they would rather search for that yes. They'll go through all these no's, no, until they find the answer they're looking for and say, yep, I'm justified now.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like the excuse game, you know, is we go back to that. And, you know, something that I've, you know, as we talk to men and we counsel men, is like, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anybody else.
Yes. Come on.
So there might be some, like, you got to do, like, again, that's why men's conference faithfully every year. And I mean, talk about airfare, conference, hotel. I paid all of it because it was worth it to me to be a better man,
right?
You know, because of what's at stake. And so you can't lead yourself. How the heck are you going to lead a wife and lead a family? Right. You can't. And so that's why you have, like, especially now, I mean, there's no role models outside of the church. There's not a ton in the church a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you see, like, where, you know, these relationships where a guy can't just even get past commitment stage. You know what I mean? So he's still living in mom's basement. He doesn't have to buy the cow because he's getting the milk for free.
Yep.
In these eternal relationships where there's no commitment, you're really not a man. You know, in that, I'm serious. Yeah. You're not a man in a biblical standard.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
You know, and so you have to be able to lead yourself first. You know, have a job. You know, save some money. You know what I mean? Do the things that are necessary to grow yourself, and then, you know, then you'll be better at what you're doing. When God, in Genesis 2, when God brings Adam and Eve together, he says, therefore a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, cling to her, and the two shall become one.
Yes.
Well, if you ain't left yet,
you ain't never leaving.
Yeah. Right? If you ain't left yet, then who do you think you're marrying?
Right.
You know, who do you think you're providing for?
Right.
Who do you think you're leading? And so much of it just comes from, like, men needing to really just to grow up and get to that standard that God has, which, again, could be a lot of obstacles there because of your background. That's okay, but that's why we're here.
Right.
That's why the church exists.
Right. And sometimes you'll hear it. Well, you hear it a lot, is how we have to change the country, right? We have to change the country. We have to, and we have these big lofty goals that of what we as the church need to do. But some of those people saying that are the same men that are not leading themselves. You know what I mean? You're not even taking that first small step to be a leader for yourself, a leader in your family, a leader within your church, a leader within your community, to get all the way up to be making this change in the country. And it's so true what you just said, that we have, or men have, a hard time just even being the leader themselves, getting out of their mom's basement. That's a great analogy. You got to get out of the basement to you got to get to the first floor eventually. You got to come up, bring your dishes
up for air
up
every once in a while, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and you know, it was funny because when I was preaching to the men, you know, I was talking to my wife afterwards, And she's like, she was doing the media, the graphics on the back screen. And so she's like, you were addressing the young men and saying how young men need to get their act together because they're not stewarding their finances. They're not leading themselves well. And, you know, how they expect to lead a wife and lead in a relationship. And so she was saying that I was talking about that. And Steve went up to her and he just leaned over in his typical Steve dry fashion and said, married problems are just single problems that were never dealt with. And then he just walked away. And he just disappeared. But, you know, he dropped the truth bomb and walked away.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It's like we look, and as young men, and I know this, like I when I was looking for a dating relationship, I was like, there were so many problems I had internally. I was rotting from the inside out.
Right.
And I'm like, God, give me a wife. God, give me a wife. That'll save me. That'll get me out of this sexual addiction. That'll get me out of lust and all my patterns of sin. That will deliver me because I'll finally be in a committed relationship. I'll get my act together.
Right.
Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, like, because that didn't go away.
Yeah.
If anything, it just ramped up even more. And so it continued rotting from the inside because I never dealt with and led myself well.
It sounds like you're reading my journal.
There was a lot of there was a lot of untangling I had to do and a lot of unraveling I needed to do to get to a healthy place, and that required hard work. And guess what I needed to do? I needed to get around healthy men who could lead me, who could show me, who could hold me accountable, who could sharpen me. And what else did I need to do? I needed to get around healthy men. But I also needed to cut off toxic men who were leading in a bad way, who were influencing me far deeper than I knew into bad habits and bad patterns, bad thoughts, and bad leading myself in such a poor way and stewarding everything so poorly. And so, you know, getting around healthy, strong men who were older than me, who were in different, you know, Ken and Steve, those guys got me through that time in my life that was so dark, and they were just firm pillars that I knew I could get to and cling to, and they were always going to be stable. Yeah. They were always going to lead me well, and I knew I could trust them because they led their families well.
Right. And let me tell you, because I just had a thought when you were saying that is there probably are a ton of men out there that think they're doing a great job and been leading their family in this way for so long, because you can do something the wrong way and not realize it until somebody comes and tells you, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So shame on us for being, if we're the leaders of our family and leaders within the church and spiritual leaders, and we have men that we're not going and we're speaking truth to about the way that they're living our lives. So shame on us as well if we're avoiding that conflict or avoiding that tough conversation with somebody that we're supposed to love and care about as a brother in Christ. Like, shame on us at those points as well.
And we don't need to be perfect to go up to our brother in Christ and say, hey, it's time to get your act together. And I feel like that seems to be the pervasive mentality, is how can I hold this person accountable when I got my own laundry list of issues, you know, like, but we're called to hold each other to a higher standard, right, especially as men. And if we're not doing that for other men in our lives, we're doing a major disservice, because we're not only not holding them accountable, but now we're also letting their family go into ruin, their children go into ruin. And we're letting generationally this curse perpetuate because we're being complacent.
Right.
We're not wanting to step on toes.
Right.
We're not wanting to offend. We're feeling like we're a hot mess, and so we can't have a conversation with people.
Right.
But the most loving thing that we can do for a brother in Christ is to go up to them and hold them accountable.
When I said shame on us, I meant shame on me. I meant shame on me, because it's something I have a challenge with, because you're right. We wait for this feeling of perfection. Like, I've finally figured it out, and now I can go pour out into somebody else. But that's not what you're never going to reach that level. You're never going to, like, with so many things, we wait for the perfect time to serve in church. That perfect time's never going to come. That perfect time's never going to come. You need to hear God's call. you need to hear that call and move and obey for sure. But it's something I've struggled with myself is you don't feel worthy enough. You don't feel that you can share the right word. I don't feel that I can memorize Bible verses to be able to spit back into this person so they can feel that love of God. But God didn't say, hey, teach them the Bible and that's how you're going to show them your love. No, you can show love in other ways. I don't have to be a theologian to be able to share love with somebody else. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And it is actually, I met with somebody recently, and I probably barely used any Bible at all when I was talking, because the person came to me with the I want to serve, like, what does that look like? What's the roadmap to serving? And then asking him about his life, I said, you're a hot mess. I said, here's what you're going to do. I said, if you really want to become somebody and serve and all that, I said, get those yellow gloves that they sell, in the kitchen supply. I said, put them on. I said, learn how to clean your toilet at your house. Dead serious. Real conversation. He didn't know what to say. I said, start cleaning toilets. And then on top of it, don't tell anybody you did it. Don't look for credit.
Come on.
Stop blaming people for your mess. Ooh. Stop blaming. No, honestly, it was no Bible at all.
Yeah.
Because what do you serve in church? You don't even know how to serve in
your
your own house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I said,
true. So
what are you going to serve over here? You going to be the same unaccountable mess that you are at home? I don't think so.
Right.
I said, so that time will come. You keep being connected to church and all that, and that time will come. But I said, honestly, you better go home and clean some toilets, and smell that dookie. That's not even yours. Smell your family's dookie, clean it, and do it with a smile on your face, and don't tell anybody you did it.
Yeah.
And just do that for a long time, week after week, month after month, and then see what God does in your life.
That's something to tell. That's something to say to somebody. Go smell that dookie.
Smell that dookie.
Those ain't roses. You're going to wake up and smell that dookie.
Yes,
and then you're going to start there, and that's the building block.
Because you don't know what humility is, or you don't know what to serve until you're on your knees in front of a toilet, and you ain't throwing up into it. That's the old days. You're cleaning it.
It's my least favorite job in the house. I'm not gonna lie. I'm
feeling
a little
who likes
convicted
that? You're like your nose is like 2 inches away from the rim of the bowl. It's like, who wants to do that? Nobody. But you know what? That's humility and that's serving.
I'm gonna start gagging again.
No. We don't. All right, we'll change the subject. But no, my point is that like you can't for a second claim that you want to be Christ-like. For a second, if you're not willing to serve.
That's good.
Yeah.
And serving is low. It's low. Like, I mean, the foot washing thing, lowest job you could have as a servant in Jesus' time, yet he did it willingly to 12,
Yep.
Like it's low. And so, like, when you think you're low, if you're still a hot mess and you're still not accountable, I said, get lower.
Get lower.
I'm serious. I'm being dead serious.
Yeah.
Like, and so my talk with that guy, no Bible, no nothing.
Yeah.
I said, man, you just need to get low, and you need to feel what it's like to serve and be accountable. You need to humble yourself, because you're still looking for justification, and you're still blaming everybody for your mess, and it's nobody's fault. Yeah, you had a rough dad. He wasn't an example. Yeah, okay, join the club. There's 80 billion of us, okay? We get it. We get it, but it's not an excuse you can hold on to forever. You're never going to climb out of that.
Yeah. This is probably a subject that we're probably going to circle back to a few times throughout the run of this podcast,
absolutely.
Because you can go on, we can go on and unpack so many different things. And I know you guys have had so many different conversations with men that are reaching out and looking for the answer. And like you said before, there is no one answer to the many different problems that we all have as men. So this is a good jumping off point. And hopefully it can touch some of the men that are listening. I know, like I said, I know it's cut me in a couple ways here tonight, and it really makes me. It really does. You guys are sitting here watching me. I'm shaking my head because there's a lot that just is soaking in, and there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that I'm gonna have to think about later when I listen to this back and be like, wow, that's a lot. It's deep.
Can I play moderator for 1 second?
Yeah.
Before we close. And you could do it like 30 seconds, but like really real practical. If some guys listening to this, right, and they're like, I don't even know where to start. What's just one thing, one practical thing you could say somebody to do to become just a better man, better husband, better father? And I know that's a loaded question, but one thing, if there's one thing.
My one thing is, and we're talking about a man with a wife, or
either way, but
is to be a better man, better father, better husband in your family. I think the communication aspect with your loved ones is probably, that's something that I hang my hat on, is I'm able to have that deep conversation that I'm not worried about. Am I gonna hurt my wife's feelings? I'm just speaking my truth, and she's allowed to speak her truth back to me, and we're able to have a dialogue in that manner, and that means the world to me. So if that was the one thing that I could lean on, I think that communication aspect, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Sure. And even qualify the question. I think anytime we're talking about becoming a better man, we are talking about becoming a better husband and father. So yep. Yeah. So Daniel, what do you got?
I'd say humble yourself. It's really lay down your pride. Lay down your pride. This isn't about you. And especially if you humble yourself and think kingdom, if you're thinking about building kingdom, start in your home. Start in your home. But you need that conviction. You need that care and desire for kingdom. And so seek the Lord. Humble yourself before him first. Get that relationship right. The more right standing you are with the Father, the more healthy your relationships will perpetuate from there, especially just leading in your home. And so I think humble yourself. Know that this isn't about being right. It's not about winning. It's about serving. And so lead as Jesus did. Jesus was a humble servant. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's along the lines of what I was thinking too, is just, every man wants to be great, right? Because I think we're inherently, we know we were born for greatness.
Absolutely.
But we have such a hard time climbing that mountain or getting that path down. So, again, going back to the word and Jesus, like Daniel was saying, God makes it clear, he ascends, he elevates those who get low, who humble themselves. Right. So if you want to be great, you got to get low first. You got to humble yourself and serve first. God will elevate you. You'll get to that place, but it's going to be by being accountable for, who you've been called to be, what you've been called to. Sum it up by saying, clean that dookie.
Clean that dookie. I can tell you guys work together.
Josh, back to you.
No, but there's a lot to unpack here, and we do hope that if there are men listening and you were touched by this, we hope you are doing a little self-reflection and really kind of digging deep and humbling yourself to say, all right, I need to be better. Don't wait until the time where somebody else is telling you that you have to be better. Do a little self-reflection and figure that out on your own.
Absolutely.
So unpack that. I know I'm definitely going to unpack it. And until next time,
see you later.
Take it easy.
We out. The Not Safe for Sunday podcast was recorded at Conquerors for Christ Church. This episode was produced by Spencer Berriman. If you like what you've heard, you can follow us on social media at NSFS Podcast. If you'd like to join us for a Sunday service, you can find us at 972 Reed Road in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts.